In today's video, we're going to be previewing the Chelsea versus Wrexham first game of pre-season, which will be taking place tonight in America. We're going to be staying up to watch that game, analysing it live, and then coming back with a video on things we learnt tomorrow. But this video is going to highlight the questions that we have going into this pre-season and the players that I think are key to keep an eye on. Here is the squad going into pre-season. We have Robert Sanchez, Marcus Bettinelli, Eddie Beach and Lucas Bergstrom as the goalkeepers. Wesley Fofana, Renato Vega, Levi Colwill, Axel Disasi, Tosin, Josh Achimpong, Benoit Badiashile, Reece James, Malo Gusto and Ben Chilwell as the defenders. A relatively small midfield group of Leslie Ugochukwu, Romeo Lavia, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, Andre Santos, Carney Chukwuemeka and Moises Caicedo, who has just joined up with the team, so he's not on this graphic. And the forward group of Raheem Sterling, Tyreek George, Mykhailo Mudryk, Angelo, Noni Madueke, Christopher Nkunku, Mark Gu, Armando Broja and Nicholas Jackson. So what can we expect from this group in pre-season? What questions do we have going in and how could it all line up? Let's go and take a look at all of that. Bear in mind, these two images I'm going to show you are completely random. They're based on nothing. There is no information going into this. At the end of the video, we're actually going to speak about what's more likely to be seen because a team this strong isn't likely to be fielded, especially on the first day of pre-season. But these are the types of teams that we could see in the profiling that we could see of each player in terms of where they could start on the pitch. And then, of course, when we become that 3-2-4-1 formation, how it could then look in possession, which we'll get onto later on in the video. But this is a little brief understanding of how it could look going in and the types of players we could see in the types of positions we could see them. Now, my first must-watch is Christopher Nkunku. Of course, we didn't see much of him last season, but when we did see him, he was very, very promising, giving us those goals and that little bit of clinical edge in and around the box. As you can see, Maresca said in his press conference that Nkunku can play everywhere. He's already taking the way we want to play. This type of player, he can play on the wing, attacking midfield, or the 9. And this is very important because I said before going into the season that this is going to be a Swiss Army knife player for Maresca. And he's going to fit into different positions as and when he's needed in those positions. And that is going to be a massive, important factor, which is why I'm so excited to see in pre-season which of those roles Maresca profiles him in predominantly and which of those roles he uses him in as a tactical Swiss Army knife. This leads me on to my second biggest question going into pre-season, and that is who's going to invert, and everybody's going to be looking for this. Again, in his press conference, Maresca said that he was watching the games where Reece played in midfield for Wigan, and he's also confirmed that Gusto has been inverting in training too. And he actually made an allusion as to Gusto playing quite well in there when he was talking about him. He also said about Cucurella when he does join up the team and the ability he has to invert, and he also mentioned Vega. Strangely enough, of course, he didn't mention Chilwell for that inverted role, so it will be interesting to see if we see Chilwell as that left centre-back because he's obviously gone on the pre-season tour, so it's expected that we'll at least see him in some capacity. I'm extremely excited to see both of these two players in that inverted role. I think Reece is made for it in terms of his build and his ability on the ball, and I also think Gusto has been extremely underrated and undervalued in the way that he can play that role due to his physicality, the athleticism he offers in that role to jump and help with the counter-press, but also that ability and technical ability on the ball, which we saw all through last season. And I think he's not just limited to being that right-sided width provider as a right-back. I think as that inverted role, I think he's going to show a lot of people just what he can do. And it's important to note, he actually did come through the ranks playing in midfield at Lyon. That brings me on to my third one to watch in pre-season, and that is Renato Vega. And there's quite a few reasons why I'm taking a very keen eye as to watching Renato Vega closely throughout this pre-season. One of those reasons is the sheer versatility that Vega offers in that position. He can invert into midfield. He can play as that left centre-back when he's tucking in from left-back. He can also start as a left centre-back, and he can also start at the pivot in a midfield as that defensive midfielder number 6. So it's going to be very interesting to see, again, how is he profiled? How many different positions is he used in? And is he used as an inverter from left-back and as a tucking in left-back into left centre-back? That's why I'm so keen to see how Vega's used. He offers that physical profile at 6'3". He's very technically astute on the ball. So it's going to be very interesting, again, to see how Maresca profiles him, how he wants to use him, and again, if he's used as a bit of a tactical Swiss Army knife in certain situations and certain game models. Now, I've been beating the drum about Noni Madueke this whole time in pre-season. I've not stopped on Twitter either, and I'm not going to stop because I think Noni Madueke, again, is one of the biggest winners under Enzo Maresca. I think he's going to absolutely explode this season. I think he's perfect for that Maresca system as that touchline right winger. Again, it will depend on where Palmer plays, but we've had those comments about versatile attackers, so it'll be interesting to see if Madueke is used in different positions, if Palmer is used in different positions to accommodate for Madueke and vice versa. But I think both of these wingers, Madueke and Mudryk, I think they're both going to be very important in this system in terms of providing that width, making runs in behind and being direct 1v1 with that fullback. This is the reason they was brought into the club. Progressive carriers, they want to get at their fullback and make things happen. Mudryk has that devastating pace and that technical ability that needs to be used and honed in upon. Madueke started to show towards the end of last season that confidence that he started to breed with his play, and he's always direct. He's more of a maverick style dribbler. He will get at the opponent much like a Doku of Manchester City. He wants to be direct and make things happen. So I'm very excited to see both of these players under Enzo Maresca and very keen to watch them closely in pre-season. Next up, we have Levi Colwill, and it's more so all about the different dynamics that we could see in that back line. I want to see Colwill in two different roles during this pre-season. I want to see him as that central centre-back orchestrating play, being that one to sort of get on the ball with that deep line playmaker and make things happen, making passes between the lines to those number 8 receivers. I think by giving Colwill that responsibility of those line-breaking passes and the one to orchestrate play from that central centre-back position could be a very big way to see him explode this season and take the reins as a bit more of a leader of the squad and a bigger part of this dressing room. However, I do also want to see a few other players in that central centre-back role, and of course Colwill would not be omitted from the squad, so I would also like to see Colwill in that left centre-back role in possession and have somebody like Tosin playing as that central centre-back. Again, it offers you that height in the middle of the pitch too with Tosin, and I think he's also quite well suited to that central centre-back role, so it'd be nice to see Colwill from that left-hand side and to see how that dynamic works in central defence. Of course, you've then also got the questions of Wesley Fofana, and I want to see him. Again, is Axel Disasi, how's he going to be profiled by Maresca? There's a few questions within that backline that need answering. And moving on to one of my favourite topics, which is Romeo Lavia. I cannot wait to see him in pre-season. I was raving about him all last season when he was injured. I was raving about him before we even signed him and how much of a gem I think he is as a talent. And I just think that especially with Enzo not in the group currently and Casado only just joining, I think especially at the start of this pre-season, it's going to be a massive chance for Lavia to nail down his sort of, not to nail down a starting spot per se, but to nail down the minutes that he will be getting within the squad, because I do think he can play it both as the number 6 and as that defensive 8. And a little bonus one that I wanted to touch on, which is Tyreek George. I think he's an amazing talent. He's my favourite coming through the Cobham pipeline right now, which is why I cannot wait to see him on this pre-season tour. I hope he gets good minutes off that left-hand side, cutting inside. He's an absolutely outrageous ball striker on both feet, but he can cut in off that left-hand side onto his right foot and unleash those shots from anywhere from outside the box, but he's also clinical in and around the box. He's also got those freakishly, not freakishly, but they're that long-legged stride, almost like a Barcola-esque. And I really like that about him, his unique gait, that like running style and that ability to change direction at speed with those long legs. It makes him very hard to tackle, and it also makes it hard for players to tackle him without fouling him because he can get that long leg across the ball and in front of players. So that makes him a very unique style player. He's also, of course, got the pace. He's very direct with his dribbling. He's creative with his passing. He's good at coming inside to switch the play. So there's a lot I like about Tyreek George, and I cannot wait to see him on this pre-season tour. So to end off the video, we are going to take a look at two of the lineups that a few people were saying on Twitter that they saw last night during the open training session. So this is what the first lineup looked like. It's interesting that we see Nkunku as that left-sided 8. Again, I do think this could be his best position, but like I said, I think he's also one of the most versatile, so I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see him moved around to accommodate for others. And this is the other team that people saw. So again, Ugochukwu playing as that sort of destroyer and Ndidi role. I think that's more so because of the lack of midfielders that we've got currently. But as you can see, you get James in that inverted role. We get to see Colwill as that left centre-back, but with Fofana as the central centre-back, which is interesting. We get to see Tyreek George minutes, Madueke out on the right. Gui, we will want to see him at least a few times in pre-season, see what he's got about him in that number 9 role. So it'll be very interesting to see how this squad plays out, how we play against Wrexham. And as I said, I'll be back with an analysis video straight after the game. So it'll be the next day to talk about all the things we learned. And then after 2 games, we'll be going into a bit more tactical framework and what has changed. But we'll be back after every game with a video, a stream, and tactical analysis on Twitter. So keep an eye out for all of that. Let me know any questions that you may have about pre-season, about Chelsea, in the comment section below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. And as I said, come back tomorrow for the things that we learned from Chelsea versus Wrexham.